everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. You're watching this episode, actually, I'm recording this episode on 1/16/25. You're watching this episode whenever the hell you want. So, this is going to be a very, very interesting episode. I'm here with PhantomGB again, and we are going to be going over some videos and some footage that we've seen online that have to do with both the paranormal and disclosure communities, including the material about the fires. And I'm going over some stuff about the fog again, too. I know this has been covered ad nauseum, but still, there's just certain aspects that haven't been touched on. So before we go into any of that, I'm going to do the opening of the circle properly. So I now open this circle to true benevolence with no conflicting agendas at this moment in time. In across time space for appropriate to serve someone else's session. Many people wonder again why I do that, and it's an energetic protocol when I go into shows. I notice when I do the open and closing, there is virtually no blowback from anything that is spoken about. It seems to diffuse it, and the law of one does this too. You see Joanna and I use that quite a bit. So I will even paste that inside the edit as of this moment in time. I notice that happens to work as well. Okay, let's see. I don't know which one of us should go first, but I think PhantomGB, maybe you should go first and show your material.
All right, yeah, I can do that. So let me just pull this up here real quick. Let me just kind of get a little prepped here.
There we go. I can see that now.
Can you see it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this is a YouTuber by the name of MindSeedTV. He's actually pretty popular. You may have even have heard of him. He covers a lot of weird stuff that's going on, and I'm just gonna play a little snippet here of some stuff going on, and then we can talk about it.
All right.
If it will let me play it.
That's being an ass. Okay, there we go.
Can you hear it?
I can't hear, but I can see the
fog that's been appearing all around the world. This fog,
there we go.
This fog isn't right, man. This fog is very strange. I even made an update last week telling you that Tampa Bay released a statement telling people not to breathe in. That really happened. And then there was these particles in it, like P2.5, that's the size of a particle. That's the reason that you could see the fog. And then some people have been noticing the fog leaving a strange white film on windshields and windows. Look at this.
The particles are still there between the water. And when you rub it, you can see, look, it's just this.
It's like some kind of powdery white substance left behind from the fog.
If that's normal rain to you, and you think it's just mist, you seriously need to get it tested.
People have been finding strange things in their yard, on their porch.
We had the mystery fog hit us a couple of days ago, and today we're walking around and we saw a bunch of bees out in the yard. Does anybody have any idea what this is? Because it feels really light, like plastic, and it kind of looks like a geode, but it's lightweight. It's almost got like a waxy texture to it. It's got a really strong chemical smell, and they're everywhere.
So I'm just going on my walk here, and I'm seeing these crystal pellets all over the place. And at first I thought it was ice, and I picked it up, and they're not heavy. They're very light. What is that? This is coming out of our sky. It just rained, but it's literally all over the place. Look, what is going on? What is that?
People have reported seeing strange mold, even like hair growing due to this fog. Take a look at this.
So yesterday and today was really, really fun. And then I'm walking in the yard and I see this here, right on the captain on the ground. It's like, never seen it.
One more thing after this, and then I'll go ahead and pause it, and we'll talk about it.
All right.
And then take a look at this guy. He left a can of cat food out overnight. This is one night that he says, and this is what he found the next day.
I'm not going crazy.
So I have an outdoor cat, and I bought him a can of Fancy Feast. Fancy Feast Turkey and Giblets Feast. This is what I found today. This here is grown out of the food that wasn't ate. And it's coarse hair. What's happening here? Am I oblivious to this, or is this normal? How do you explain that?
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pause it there so we can talk about it.
All right. Yeah, that is actually quite interesting. Now, the fog, I know the recent fog that's gone through is essentially an experiment going on from some of the underground domes of deep underground military bases. There's some alien involvement too, but then you have, when I understand what's going on, everybody's heard of chemtrails and chem clouds. This is actually more on a mass scale. This also, some of it carried nanotech and smart dust with it. If people don't know what smart dust is, that's essentially nanotech. If you think you're looking at dust particles, it's actually nanotechnology. And people have also seen this crap coming out of smokestacks in industrial areas, things of that nature, for over the years. This has been being talked about since the 90s. But chemtrails essentially were originally aluminum, barium, and strontium, but they've put a lot of other things in it. People have found this snow that won't melt that you could literally set on fire, things of that nature. This is actually a more advanced version of that because it came up from underground and settled along the ground is what happened. If people remember in Canada, believe it was earlier 2023, whereas they had a fire up there and the smoke drifted over New York City, and New York City ended up, having these strange clouds form around it, both orange and green. Some blue is in there too. Smoke don't look like that. I suppose if you burn industrial chemicals or something like that, yeah, it starts to have weird colors. But New York wasn't doing any of that. I could see if the fire spread to a spot where there was chemicals, but this didn't happen. Mostly green and orange that was taking place. Some reds in there as well, and it kept shifting colors like a mood ring, and then it stopped. A lot of people don't remember this particular thing going on completely because these chemicals are part of this. We have dubbed it the dumbing, and the dumbing is people may
That's pretty funny.
yeah, we called it the dumbing. We're making fun of the movie The Happening when we say this because the tree's killing everybody. So we call it the dumbing. And there's two components to the dumbing. You have energetic, which is psionics, which is electronically based, electronic weapon based, or telepathically based psionics. And then you have chemically based. And the chemically based is what you're seeing. And people that have heard our lectures have heard me say this reference. This is probably one of the dumbest references and one of the probably most obscure ways of disclosing this I have ever seen in my life. This was a couple months back. We were watching SpongeBob with Joanna's grandson, and something told me to flip to the second station, Nickelodeon station, number 2. And I flipped to it. My intuition was just telling me to go to that one. The whole episode was about when the character Plankton is trying to make everybody dumb in Bikini Bottom by taking Patrick Starr's DNA and making a dumbing formula. And he ends up spilling it on himself, and he becomes retarded. So what happens is then it goes up into a chem cloud, rains down on everybody, and makes everybody stupid. And then at the end of it, how does this end? Well, it's really telling because then the squirrel named Sally takes everybody into the school system and re-educates them. You see the propaganda that's going on there. And of all the
Oh
places,
yeah, absolutely.
SpongeBob, of all the places, SpongeBob. And I was meant to see that. And what also another version of this, if people know the Simpsons disclosure that's out there, whereas there was a Halloween episode where Homer eats a radioactive donut, this green like mist comes out of him and starts to infect everybody, and they all turn into Homer. Again, another regurgitation of the dumbing that is being seen. This is something like this because the reason I say the number 2 channel as well. It wasn't just that, as I was just guided to it. Number 2 is significant because the chemical disclosure or the chemical unleashing of the dumbing or psionic dampening is you have the psionics, which is the first method, the energetic method, the sound light manipulation. Then you have the secondary method, which is the chemical. So it was actually significant that that was on the second channel. So I thought that was actually an interesting synchronicity. These are things I was meant to actually see. Other friends have guided me to other sources, but this particular thing is that effect because I've heard across the board, including some friends of mine I just recently spoke to in the past 12 hours, that basically said they feel stupid. They feel like they're regressing into some kind of stupid Neanderthalic way of thinking. And that's also what the chemtrails, you have the binary network, which is the 5G. Back during the COVID thing, you saw the hysteria that happened there. So with the vaccines and the COVID, so you all of it was combined in that you have the 5G that activated that whole thing and spread it around. You also have the DO weaponry that starts fires. So hence the fires recently. So I don't want to get too far into that until we get further in. But this thing with the hair, though, which I find fascinating, can these chemicals make these weird growths and stuff like that? Yeah, and sometimes the hair, the nanofibers, can go in these globule chains and look like hair too. There's also a disease out there called Morgellons. And you see these strands, these colorful strands coming out of people's arms and everything. What ends up happening is those are globs of nanochains that come out of that the body is recreating, just like the COVID vaccine caused the spike protein to recreate in people. There's all these chemicals that will cause these strands of hair. I equate it to well, there's chemicals being mined from people from different parties, from corporate to military to alien. And I equate it to when they feed the coffee beans to the elephant poops it out, and then they ferment the beans that way. It's kind of along those lines. That's the gross analogy to it, but that is what I equate it to. And I've seen this multiple times where people have complained that they think somebody's tried to abduct them or somebody's being experimented on, and some chemical is being extracted from the person's body. Hence, the body's absorbing something. This is a form of farming. So the body is absorbing something either through food and the chemicals in the food, or in the sky, or what have you, and something else is being mined as a result. I've seen this on multiple occasions and multiple sessions, but this, though, is slightly different, where it's just mass blanketing everybody. But the thing with the hair looks like, of course, like regular hair. And could some of those chemicals cause something to grow in there like a chia pet? Absolutely. I've seen that as well. But some of those hair fibers that are growing in the ground, it's like Morgellons where you have the globs of nanofibers. And I've seen this time and again. I've seen these chemical, like actually, I'm going to show one of mine real fast here. It's from the same YouTuber. So I will bring this up and see if
here after this, you talked about the dumbing. I have another example of that in fiction. So we'll talk about that after the video.
Okay, I gotta make sure I got the right one here. Yeah, here it is. Same user. This is Mindseed TV. This guy's doing a good job from what I've seen.
Oh yeah, no, I've been watching this guy for a long time. He's really good.
Yeah. So hats off to you, Mindseed, because you're doing an excellent job. So you see this gassing that's going on?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And seeing that kind of lines up with everything.
Don have to say about all that? Well, listen for yourself. I would probably have to think back to the words of a very wise prophet, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who said, "These aren't the drones you're looking for." Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go with that. But those are that's gassing that you're seeing. That's this dumbing, as I was just saying, taking place. The psionic aspect are like Gwyn towers. You also have HARP that controls the weather. You have all of these types of things going on. And there's also reports of a lot of insiders like to say the Draco reptilians are responsible for doing the gassing. I feel that, yeah, have they done it? Yeah, but I feel now it's mostly our military and government that's doing it. And you had that general basically trying to divert the conversation by being cute about it. But that's essentially what was going on with that spraying. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing that misting, and in some cases, it's forming those crystals and globules all over the place. It's being done so close to the ground, and also some comes from underground that, of course, you're having it seep upward, you're having it cling to the ground, clinging to people's cars. So yeah, that's what caused a lot of that fog, from what I understand it. Anyway.
All right, so yeah, earlier you mentioned something, you mentioned like The Simpsons and stuff as examples of the dumbing. I've actually got an example of that. And I know you have you watched Fairy Tale at all? It's an anime.
I have not. There's probably some of our fans that have, but I have not. No.
All right. So there is a kind of a filler episode. This particular incident did not happen in the manga, but they did make a weird episode. So there is a character in this anime by the name of Ichiya, and okay, so the whole premise of Fairy Tail is they're all mages, they're all magical users, and they all have special magic abilities or stuff that they can do. This particular character, Ichiya, he's like your typical Chad character who like he thinks he's all handsome and he's always hitting on all the female main characters and stuff like that. His special thing is he makes potions. So in this particular episode, he decides to make a potion where he can like basically make clones of himself. Well, he accidentally dropped it into the main like village's water supply by accident. And so it starts turning everyone into him. And it was just kind of, you'd have to watch the episode. It was hilarious, but like he's not exactly the smartest character. So yeah, anyone who drank from the water supply started slowly turning into him, and then anyone who got close to them also turned into him, and then the next thing you know, it's just the main character Natsu and Lucy that are left to have to figure out how to stop this thing. It's a very hilarious episode, but it's a perfect example of what you were just talking about.
They love to do things like that with humor. Like they like to deliver these bits of disclosure with humor, like the whole haha premise. You've even seen people gotten on talk shows like for alien disclosure. You saw President Obama get on Jimmy Kimmel one time and go, "Oh yeah, we've seen aliens, haha." They love to interlace it with haha joking. They like to make it humorous in a lot of cases, or you'll have some people take it and do very serious, but they'll put it in a humorous context, like Homer with everybody turning into Homer, or that character, everybody turning into him. They love to interlace it into jokes, humor a lot of times. I've noticed that same pattern across the board. They love to do that. And that's actually interesting. See, I wouldn't have known about that. You watch that particular show and you've seen it there, but I'd be willing to bet, and others of our viewers can comment on this in the comments below, if there's any shows that you think that we've missed that have these types of disclosures in them, let us know, because then we'll go check them out and see where this has ended up. I've noticed from video games to movies to cartoons, kids shows, everything, it is being disclosed everywhere. And the most common question is, why do they do this if they're trying to keep this secret? It is because it's like with a child that has done something wrong and then comes to the parent and goes, "I've done this," and then wonder why they're still getting grounded. It's the same premise. They think they're absolved of any crimes if they find a way to admit their wrongdoing. And they're putting it out there, disclosing it, saying, "See, we told you, we're absolved of any wrongdoing because you consented to this because we told you." And this is that type of mentality. It's this childish.
My stepson kind of comes to mind.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yes, exactly. And you see this mentality across the board with these people. They figure if they tell you, they're not in trouble, or they're absolved of some kind of karmic hammer dropping on universal law, whatever you want to call this. Even if you don't believe that premise, they do. And this is the scary part. No matter what you believe on these subjects, they believe it. So this is basically their cultist mindset in this way. I've seen this a lot of times. I've seen this from the very beginning. All these patterns building from numbers to all this other crapola that has been actually building for some time. Let me see here. Let's see what else I got here. All right, I have. Okay, I'll go on to the next one here. It's still from the same source. So I find this interesting. It's from the same guy. All right. And this is the same video, the UFO sighting over California fires. And I will display this and I'll talk about the theory.
I covered this weird, dark, ominous figure in Israel on a live news coverage. Now, guess what? The same thing has been spotted in California now. It's not a kite. Kites are not going to fly away. What is that? What the hell is that? It was caught by multiple people recording it. A strange, dark, shadowy looking object flying through the sky in the clouds, through the smoke. Then you have this footage. Take a look at this. This was caught on live news of the fires in California. Check this out.
It's a lot with a number of cases that we heard from military pilots going back even 10 or 15 years.
You can clearly see like a white glowing object flying through the smoke, and it goes from the right of the screen all the way down, and then it kind of swoops back up. Now, some people said maybe that's a power line burning out, which is a possibility. You could see the shape of it kind of looks like a power line. So if a power line like caught flames and then the electrical zap went down the cord, it might make that shape right there. But then how do you explain this footage right here?
We're watching the fires. I swear there's a UFO, but there's a plane. What the fuck is that? What the fuck? Look at it.
Okay. Oh, I've done enough of that one. Okay, what's interesting about this is, and this coincides with some recent channelings we did with the forest people, where this is the fires in California, where, say if you wanted a resource, and this falls under weather control as well, what happened in Asheville, North Carolina, and from Hurricane Helene and Milton as well, on the East Coast, where we're at. This falls under the same identical category, land and resource grabbing. Because of the little shadows you were seeing, this is alien. This is dimensional and alien. Because you don't recognize it because it doesn't look like something you've seen before. Like it could be a piece of technology, it could be a being, could be somebody monitoring, bilocating. You've not seen it before, so it doesn't register as to what this is. Some people always use the blanket term shadow being, which could be anything from Sasquatch to alien, dimensionally based. But with this, the fires, think about if you wanted a piece of land, if you wanted it very, very badly. What did they do back in the witch trial period? They declared somebody a witch so they could take somebody's property from them. In this, people were resisting what the cabal said would be like a mass culling. Think of the Georgia Guidestones for a minute, the reducing the population down in accordance with nature, and then the aliens would move in and then would be oppressing the people. That never happened and never will. I'm just saying, again, this is what these people believe. And what happens is, say if you want a resource, wouldn't you burn it out? Wouldn't you burn an area out of anybody that owned it, to knowing full well they couldn't afford to rebuild?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that is definitely the theory that's going around.
And
I'm not even so sure it's a theory anymore because they've kind of come out and already said the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, but in this case, you're dealing with both government and their alien cronies that want to move into certain areas. You also have a third component in there that people don't know a whole lot about. And there is a theory / rumor out there that from about the beginning of I would have to say the beginning of the 2010s. If I'm wrong on this, please let me know, people. But that China actually grabbed California, Oregon, and Washington, part of Canada, to also have our U.S. debts paid off to them and part of Canada. Some people in British Columbia have spotted a Chinese city off in the wilderness. This is just rumor. Nobody's been able to actually go and look. I did it through remote viewing, but substantiated if somebody wants to go look for this. But in the mountains of British Columbia. But also, I was told by others as well when I brought in channeling, and also I was able to substantiate that there's a possibility that they own those 3 states. If you wanted people to move out of there, what would you do? Cause a bunch of panic, destruction, all this other stuff. You'd try to get them to move east. This is another theory and rumor that's going around. But the other one, this coincides, as I've said, along with what happened on the East Coast. Weather control, the massive superstorms, and what happened specifically in Asheville, North Carolina, where everything was destroyed. It's the same premise. If you wanted to mine something, if you wanted to claim a resource, what would you do? You would destroy everything around it and blame it on an act of God or an act of nature. And people wouldn't be able to rebuild. What is there in Asheville, North Carolina? A lithium mine, a big one that some people didn't know about until after the destruction of parts of Asheville. There is a story that's been going around that if you are this person, please put it in the comments below. Uh, there was a person that was a helicopter pilot that, and he would believe he was also law enforcement. He had he was rescuing some people from Asheville that, anybody with resources usually comes in and helps out. He came in, rescued this person's wife. He had to leave his co-pilot behind a while before, because it was one of those smaller helicopters, those bubble-like ones. And he dropped this person's wife off. This man with a badge walks up to him and says, "If you go back in there and rescue any more people, I have to place you under arrest." And he goes, "Well, my co-pilot and her husband are back there." And he goes, "You don't understand. We have authority here. You cannot do this or I will throw you in jail." He did it anyway. He had his people watch this other guy. Did it anyway. It turned out that this guy wasn't law enforcement. He was somebody who worked for a mining company that happened to be working with the U.S. government. And he just happened to catch this. They didn't expect anybody to be out doing anything. So this is partially rumor. I can't seem to find any more of this story. So if you're this individual that was a helicopter pilot, if you could please put in the comments below if you see this video or if anybody knows this individual that was spoken about during that disaster from Helene and eventually Milton, let us know. But this was on the other end of the spectrum. It has to do with the exact same premise: resource acquisition, essentially piracy. So also that little that trail you were seeing, that electrical looking trail, yes, it could have been the power lines, but there's also another story that has been circulating online that this was an underground like rail track that this was following. And you've also seen a lot of things happen from underground where some people have let out some EMP bursts and blown up transformers and things of this nature. With that, you also with disasters. You especially like nuclear disasters or nuclear plants or nuclear missiles, you see aliens and spacecraft and little orbs and stuff around them. Some of them I found out are a version of us from another timeline. Other things are aliens, other things are us. You have a mixed bag here. They're going around these places of high energy and what has been going on. In this case, in California, some of them are literally monitoring what is going on so they know where to plant their flag after this. And I be willing to bet this is actually a prediction of mine in this. And also the other beings like the forest people and everything have been corroborating this. You will start to see some of the businesses and buildings that actually survived this. You will start to see some of those expand into the tunnels underneath and start to expand different corporations and different businesses again in alignment with the resource acquisition and the piracy. So this is essentially what I feel you're going to see based on that. This is really what I know. I can't completely substantiate this, but I have seen this pattern over the years, whereas I've seen groups pull this quite a bit, whether it be for alien interest, government, military interest, corporate project interests, any of them. Take your pick. It's also based on what they believe and their philosophies. So if you know what they believe and what they feel they're entitled to, then you can follow their pattern quite easily. So I don't know if you have anything else. I know I got one more, but do you have any other videos?
Out the top of my head, no, I don't have any videos. There was one I wanted to show, but I couldn't find it again. But it's interesting because it was like maybe I want to say maybe a week and a half to 2 weeks prior to the California fires. And it was actually a couple of TikTok videos, and they were showing how there were these weird like sparks coming from like what looked like the power lines, or maybe even close to them, may not even have been coming from the power lines. And they were trying to report that to the electric company there and this was in Los Angeles, and they ignored it. They just said, "Oh, everything's fine."
Yeah, you'll see that. You'll see that some of these places will just ignore it because they're being told to. They're being told that if anybody reports this or anybody talks to you about this, everything's okay. Even if it isn't, these companies are going along with what their marching orders are. I've seen that a lot of times as well, where you'll have people skulking also around a neighborhood doing things they shouldn't, and they're under the guise of some other thing. Case in point, in Illinois, Mundelein, Illinois, where my father lives, there was one morning when this is actually goes right along with this topic. Nobody's ever heard me talk about this before. Whereas we got up one morning to go somewhere and we saw somebody actually trying to break into the house. And we caught this guy who's in jeans, flannel, gloves, the bandana around the mouth, the real moron. And we drag him in the house, and I'm yelling to my father to come in the room. I'm sitting on this guy. I'm 320 pounds. This guy wasn't going anywhere. So, and he's yelling and screaming and the whole bit. And then this other worker, really strange set of events happened after this. This guy in this lab coat and one of those masks, that have the plastic shield in front of his face and everything. But it was like this amber colored type one, comes running up to the house and he goes, "Hey, he's one of our people. We're the cable company." I'm looking at this guy. It's like, "You don't look like a cable worker. You look like you belong in a lab somewhere." And I said, "No, no, no. We'll just get the cops involved. We're good." We zip tied the guy, and he's just laying there. Well, all of a sudden this cop shows up. And you see no cars, no vehicles, not even from what somebody that's supposed to be a cable worker. No vehicles, none, zero, no sirens, no nothing. And no lights, no utility vehicles, no cones, no nothing. And this cop just comes around the corner. I'm like, then I looked at both of them. I said, "Did you guys come out of the sewers like a couple of Ninja Turtles or something? Because it's like you just came out of nowhere." And this cop goes, "Well, you have to let this guy go. They're doing this work." I said, "Well, we want to be able to charge him. He tried to break in. We want him arrested." And this cop basically gave us an ultimatum, said, "If you don't let him go, we have to arrest you." That's how we were treated. And I'm going, "Okay, I don't think you're a cop," but we had little choice but to cut him loose. And so what ended up happening, I came to find out that a lot of these people that work in some of these domes, the deep underground military bases, and some of the tunnels underneath, you see the disclosure in the Fallout series where you see the tunnels and vaults underneath cities and under businesses and everything. This is what's going on with this, where they literally did come out of the sewer and of a disguised military base. That was more likely close to that area. That's how that cop got there so fast. They really weren't these people. They weren't what they appeared, but they hide in plain sight. They walk around inspecting an area, looking around at what they're doing as they're working for these other arms. Essentially, they're an arm for one of these other companies or projects. And they took the guy away. And I looked at the guy with that had the shield on his face. I said, "Don't BS me. I know exactly what you're doing." And he just kind of grinned at me with that creepy ass, like, "Yeah, what are you going to do about it?" grin. So, I haven't we haven't told anybody that one, but I've run into some of these workers. I even talked to a friend of mine in Canada who knows that they're in Calgary. There's a base under there, and you see this construction worker walking around there all the time. He's not a construction worker. You can tell by the way he walks, he's a soldier. So this is what's happening in a lot of these areas. If you see some of these people inspecting, they are actually, well, they're actually inspecting what's going on based upon some other project. There's also these fire starter people that are out there. They will literally start good old-fashioned gasoline matches type of thing, and they'll and also do weaponry. Will also spread that fire around like a paintbrush. That's what happened in Australia before COVID started in early 2020, if everybody remembers that, before the COVID debacle hit. But with that is a DEW weapon can hit from space, directed energy weapon is what that stands for. And it literally will spread that out of control. You can do that in somebody's cells too. You can spread cancer cells in the same way. I've seen that happen a numerous amount of times. V2K technology can do this with preset algorithms. You tell an AI what to do. Like if you have in Photoshop or some other photo editing program, you have presets. You can have presets on a phone or tablet for those types of things too. This is why in your ancient mythology and Sumerian mythology, you have the Tablet of Destiny, which was the Enki Enlil material in the Nume Elish. It's because they were doing the same thing. That's what they used to cause the flood in that time frame, if you want to compare it to ancient time. But this is essentially the same type of physics or dynamic. But I do have one more that is off there's two more, excuse me. So I will go on to this next one. I will now play this for you. It's this is of a odd creature that people spotted.
In a rural area. His security cams pick up an unidentified creature that looks humanoid but is not. And here's the kicker. This isn't the first time we have posted about this. This is actually a second sighting of this creature. But again, the question remains, what is this thing? Take a look at this footage and tell me what you think.
Okay, I'll say.
That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that creature. These are a creature known as a rake, Rake, and these are quite nasty, like dimensional type creatures. Some people would argue that that is just some dimensional being that quite doesn't translate right in our physics. Um, and but like there is a scene in the show Farscape where Crichton, the character Crichton, has a being around him that takes his father's form quite a bit, kind of like the alien from Contact with Jodie Foster. Same premise. The alien describes that he's an interdimensional that comes into our set of physics, and our physics conform him to our 3D way of existing. And then he looks kind of like a Muppet. It's Jim Henson, so what do you expect? But then he shapeshifts into Crichton's father's form in it. Now, UFOs sometimes can take that form. They go from a dimensional state to our state, and they take these weird geometric forms if it's a dimensional species. In the Riggs case, though, this is what this being actually looks like. It just shifts frequency like a Sasquatch or a Dogman does. This is, and forest people and all of them, they do not like these beings. These things are mostly feral, and they are, they're mean as holy hell. They've been known to attack people, and they can shift in and out with sound frequencies, and they make these god-awful screech noises, very similar to a banshee. The only difference with a banshee is those were an elven type that made a chirping noise. If you look into Charles J. Hall and the Tall Whites material of Nellis, those are what those are, but and fairies and elves. But with this makes this weird hyena-like screech noise and will phase in and out of our frequency. And they've been known to attack people. Some people were wondering what this thing was. Somebody showed me this particular video, and I mentioned it on Facebook to the Disclosure Now community, but I wanted to bring that up again because some people have been asking me about rakes and what that particular creature is all about. And they're normally seen on where I'm at on the East Coast, like from the Carolinas up into New England. They're generally seen. Maybe a future episode on creatures like that is warranted, but I just wanted to bring that up. And you showed me a video this morning. I want to make sure I have this up. Actually, I only play, and that's my screen shared. Right. I'll only play a small snippet out here. I'll see if it actually bothers to play the sound.
Like our whole road and our y'all. I'm freaking out right now. And I don't have an explanation for this, okay? And I don't freak out easily. Something weird is happening at our house. But our whole road and our neighborhood, we're not really in a neighborhood, but like something really weird is happening. So we were sitting here at around 9:45 tonight. I get a call from my neighbor who is panicking. Like she's freaking out. She just heard something hit, like shook her house, and then it shook her house. Well, of course, we're trying to go over, so my husband gets his safety device and runs across over there, and he's going around the perimeter. And she's older; she hasn't been outside this whole storm, so there's no tracks, no animals, no ice, no nothing, y'all, nothing around her house. In my mind, well, the ice fell off of her roof. It's 8 degrees here. Nothing is melting, nothing is falling, nothing is sliding. So it's just the ice. It's got to be the ice. So my husband looks and there's no tracks, no signs of ice falling anywhere around her house. Nothing, she swears. It shook her house so hard it shook her bedroom door.
Okay. I will end that there. I can put all the pertinent links under the video, so if people want to watch the entirety of these people's work. But this is interesting. This also has to do. People have heard of sonic booms and the fact that plane goes past Mach 3, you break the sound barrier, and that causes the sonic boom. Well, what happens in some cases, you have things like those UFOs, those orbs, and things like that that will also do that same thing and shake the house as they're going through. Kind of think of Sonic the Hedgehog as he's running through an area, kind of thing, in the movies. But also, you have these things that are going on underground. You have underground drilling happening. Think about like in Fallout 76, where you see the big drill thing when you're going underneath looking for Vault 79, if people want to check that reference. They showed underground rail systems. If they're also constructing things like that, for real, underneath, you're going to feel the rumbling. We felt this in Arizona, and people didn't know where that was coming from. Strange sounds that are just blaring off in the distance. Some of this is Project Bluebeam, that also because you have lights and holograms and stuff going with it, early tests of things like that. But you also have projects and drilling and other things under the ground in the deep underground military bases. They cannot account for all of these sounds and noises that come out of these places. Just they can't account for viruses. They can't account for, even if they think they can, they can't account for any of their abomination creatures they mess around with in genomic anything in their bases. Sometimes they let things out just to freak people out, but with these sounds, they let it happen because they knew it would scare people. But at the same time, they knew people would report this, but also at the same time, they can't account 100% of everything that they're doing in the bases. Even in some of the deepest underground areas, you have sound that reverbs from somewhere, someplace. It's going to go somewhere, and they will never tell you what it is. They're just going to keep it a mystery. You'll know that it's they're responsible for it. So because if they're asked, they're going to go, "We really don't want to know what this is. We're going to investigate this." And that. They're responsible. So this is essentially what that is. If you want to look into that sometime. But that is literally the last thing that I have before we go into channel questions. But I don't know, Phantom Gigabyte, if you have anything else to present at all.
Well, and that kind of made me think of, there's some videos from a while. Actually, they've circulated for a couple of years now. Like people would hear like these loud horn noises coming out of nowhere. A lot of people attribute it to the Book of Revelations, but I don't think it was quite that. But like even just 2 years ago, especially during 2020, a lot of people were documenting hearing like this just loud horn noise, and then suddenly they stopped.
Yes, that's them screwing around with some kind of hologram or sound generator underneath the ground. It's sometimes designed to freak people out. They sometimes are judging what people's reactions are to stimulus like that. But sometimes it's an accident. Sometimes they're screwing around and something happens, and then they have to cover their ass. They'll just go, okay, some of the paranormal people will see it. We don't have to say a thing. And sometimes they'll let something out just to spread fear, panic, and also propaganda as well. This is where you get some of those government documents from. This is why I'm skeptical of any of the congressional UFO disclosure stuff and stuff like that, because these are people that are generally in some kind of defense or some kind of op or something like that. So you can't take it at face value. The same goes with this kind of stuff. Sometimes it's an accident, sometimes it's intentional. You just have to judge based upon how they act when they're asked. That's usually how you can tell who's guilty of it. I will, if there's nothing else, I can go into the channel and we can go into a short question answer if you like then. I know it's more than likely going to be Isaac again because he works around a lot of this stuff. So,
Yeah, I don't know if I got any this time, to be honest with you.
no, well, I'll see what he comments, and then let me see. Just full disclosure in this way. Sometimes he sets up some of these shows based upon the material, just so it can be compared side by side too. So he's been known to do stuff like that as well. So despite all of his jokes and puns and everything. So Isaac, you can go faster than that. Okay. A little faster than that, not the creepy way. No. When I say creepy way, he sometimes will slowly integrate to make it feel slightly weird, kind of the equivalent of somebody feeling you up. So Or yes,
I'm not surprised at this point.
yes, I know, Isaac. That's called copping a field. Now shut up. Just come in here. Let's see. Yes, I do this to him quite often because I try to, let's say, trigger his sense of humor along with the creepiness. So, with this, I will make comments on what has been spoken about today, along with the fires and the fog, all of these. And I work around this. So, my physical self is within the state of Arizona, or not for a whole lot longer. I intend to move quickly to wherever I'm supposed to go. But with this said, uh, I was around in and around Luke Air Force Base. My brother Thorsden is around Barstow and Edwards. And people always think, oh, we're working with them. Yes and no. We try to change the energy constant around these people. We hold the space and try to co-create. As you've said on a past program where you just act as if something is already occurring, that is what we're doing around these people to make sure they don't do something retarded. So with that said, I have seen a lot of these different races, different species actually try to land grab and try to do a lot of these things. He spoke of this years ago when he was in, and Joanna were in Globe, Arizona. And he noticed that the ICC, which is the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, they own a lot of your different companies and mining acquisitions and communications. Viacom is the one that owns the communications, but they own literally all the bigger ones. They are literally space oriented and they trade with not only the Galactic Federation, but other races. And they try to set up mining acquisitions, especially where there's a large amount of precious metals like copper, silver, gold, things of that nature, and try to set up land plots for some of these different races. In Globe, there was this fight going on between the Native Americans and the corporations, like you'd expect at any point in history. The natives considered the area where the copper mining was happening to be sacred. The corporations didn't give a shit. So with this, he just communicated to these ETs that the ICC would knife them, and they fell for it, which was not wrong to do because they would have. They would have tried to cheat him, like a Ferengi in Star Trek. A deal is a deal kind of thing. Anyway, elementals in the area were pleased with this because they were backing the Native Americans. They left them money on the ground, which was $40. That was enough to pay for the gas there. They literally pickpocketed one of the workers that was doing the mining. I will say this. And elementals like gnomes and Grimpa, there's these little gizmo type of beings, and like Fae and such, will do this from time to time. They will reward people they like. And forest people will do this too. They'll take from one place to another place. You can say it's piracy all you want, but it's more like playing a Robin Hood role, robbing from the rich, giving to the poor, or I don't like this person, I like this person. That's how they operate a lot. But this is one of those cases where mining was going on. Even in and around the Georgia Guidestones, they had some things in that part of Georgia as well. Think just some kind of resource acquisition. There's a lot of resources that aren't out in the galaxy, and they come to Earth because Earth is the wild, wild west. Think about when you see UFOs over power plants. He said before, aside from what was said, sometimes they will pull off the energy, time fractures like your Skinwalker Ranch, or places like vortexes in Sedona. In Sedona, for instance, they were attempting to pull energy out of the vortexes. Your military tried to cap that and tried to capitalize off it like a gas station. It didn't work. The energy shifted back to normal, and the UFO sightings continue there. It's just like in your Doctor Who, where the doctor puts a TARDIS over a time fracture, where in the past, as your Eccleston actor, Christopher Eccleston went back and actually interacted with interdimensional beings. In that same time, that same fracture, in the more present day, in your David Tennant era, he was fueling on that spot in Cardiff. There actually is a vortex in that spot, believe it or not. That was soft disclosure there as well, where there are government offices in and around there, just like your Torchwood. There are benevolent ones as well that act like that, and some that have been taken over by white hats from black hat oriented, like your torch would. They took from a more negatively oriented to more positively oriented, or positively-ish, sort of. I will just go that far. The fueling of the TARDIS was exactly what some of these UFOs do. Also, geothermal energy, and also even things burning will give off fuel. But the ones that were in California were actually just observing some of their handiwork and observing the acquisitions of which they were about to receive. So if you have any questions, I can answer them if you like.
Well, it kind of goes along with what you were talking about as far as the land acquisition goes. There's a lot of theories going around that they want to at least start with LA and turn it into what they call a smart city where there's more surveillance. Is there some truth to that?
Yes, you are exactly correct, there, Phantom Gigabyte, because of the fact that what would be actually most lucrative if you were trying to start something like a smart city? Would you want older architecture that would be a pain in the ass to convert, or would you just want to get rid of it and wipe the slate clean and start over? That's exactly what you are seeing currently. Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I thought, and that makes a lot of sense. And as far as the fires goes, I'm pretty sure you could probably confirm this is mostly man-made.
It is actually, yes, it's 100% man-made because of the fact that, yes, you had some people lighting the fires, you have some idiot flinging a cigarette or something. Yeah, they like to blame it on that, but flicking the cigarette, but that would just cause a small brush fire, not this huge monstrous beast. But this is essentially, some will take some gasoline and light it, like he says, because like with weather control tech, you have to have an existing storm front that you've seeded, and then you can paint it around and build it and build it and build it, and then turn it into a big superstorm like a Category 5 hurricane. With this, it's the same thing with fire. It's an element. They try to control the elements, by which then they build this big fire and paint it around the landscape. Well, think of an interface for a second where you have a monitor, where you have the software, and you have a bullseye or a crosshairs. You can literally tell a storm where to go. You can even let it loose, and then it just follows the jet stream and out to sea like a hurricane. But with this, don't you think it's weird that some circle in like figure eights and do weird shit because it's being clicked on a monitor? Think of a game that's an over-the-top game for a second, where it's a top-side one, where you click on a computer where you want the figure to go. Think of a crosshairs where you want an area to burn. This is exactly what's going on, and it causes the most panic and distraction as well, and most destruction and the most demoralization to the people. All of those layers are included in this concept.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty much all I got for you.
All right, then. Yes, him and Joanna have bumped up these shows recently in preparation for having an even bigger workload in the Disclosure Now movement. So, with that said, you are always welcome on this as well, and I thank all of you for watching this. So, bye-bye.